Hello, my name is Arthur, and today I'm going to help you review all the biological concepts you need to know for your AP Psych exam. First thing we're going to be talking about is the brain. Uh, all the higher order thinking of the brain comes from the cerebrum, the colored area you see right here, and they're split into four lobes, as you remember. The frontal lobe controls personality and decision making. If you remember Phineas Gage, who had a metal spike go through his head, it took out a huge chunk of his frontal lobe, and he was actually able to live, but he changed drastically, and that's how we learned that your personality is in your frontal lobe. It also contains Broca's area, which is the area that produces speech, and the motor cortex, which produces voluntary movement. And then the parietal lobe, that processes spatial awareness, and it also contains the so hard to say, I can never get used to it. Somatosensory cortex, which is just basically the feeling of um, movement. So, like if you move your arm, that's the motor cortex, but the feeling of moving your arm, that is the somatosensory cortex. And then also has Wernicke's area, which has to do with the processing of speech. Um, the temporal lobe, that processes short-term memory and hearing, and the occipital lobe processes vision. Um, Cerebellum, that is known as the little brain, it is not a part of the cerebrum, but it helps with coordination, especially with voluntary movement and balance. Um, and then, if going to the more basic functions of the brain, that like are needed for survival, those are done by the brainstem. The medulla is the most basic. It regulates breathing, heartbeat, and blood flow. One of the parts most essential to survival. And then the pons connects to medulla and midbrain. It deals with and controls it's a huge range of functions. It's just random, like chewing, blinking, tear production, and more. It's weird. And then the midbrain also has a large range of functions, like motor control, sensory processing, hearing, environmental changes, and more. And then the reticular activating system is throughout the brainstem, and it helps control the sleep and waking cycle of the body. And then the thalamus is in the middle. At the top. It's in the middle of the brain, and that is because it's a relay station for brain functions and processing. And then if you're having trouble remembering the difference between a hypothalamus and a thalamus, I like to imagine. I just imagine the word hypo as high, and that helps me remember that hypothalamus deals with higher order brain functioning, or has a higher role in the system of the brain. And then moving on to the limbic system, like I said, the hypothalamus, it keeps the body in homeostasis. It regulates pretty much everything in the body. And it also regulates the pituitary gland, which controls the endocrine system, which is the system of hormones throughout the body. And it has different effects. All hormones have different effects. The amygdala, that regulates emotions and the fight or flight response. That's why it deals with aggression too. And then hippocampus, it's pretty simple. It just forms long-term memories. So if that's damaged, you can't form new memories. Moving on to neurons, we have dendrites of the neuron, which receives information from other neurons as from the axon terminal, and triggers the action potential, which fires down the axon, the long end of the neuron. And then the axon is encased by a myelin sheath, which helps focus the action potential down the neuron. And then the action potential is just the electric charge that is transmitted down the neuron. And then as the electric potential gets to the axon terminal, it crosses the synapse, the gap between the gap between the axon terminal and the cell body, and neurotransmitters are deployed across the gap to help trigger the next neuron. And then speaking of neurotransmitters, there are 8 of them that I want to review. That sorry, eight that like these are the eight most important ones that you should review for the AP test. Adrenaline, that excites the body by increasing your heart rate. It's most known for being involved in the flight or fight response. And then noradrenaline increases concentration, and like I said, also a part of the sympathetic nervous system. And then endorphins, those help relieve pain in the body, and they're released when exercising. If you've ever gotten a runner's high, that's where they come from. Dopamine, that's the pleasure-seeking neurotransmitter. It's associated with anticipation. Um, it's mainly gained from like I don't know, going on Instagram. Uh, and then serotonin that contributes to well-being and happiness. And then low levels are linked to depression. So when someone has depression, that's why doctors mainly describe them um, a medication to help uh, hi- raise their serotonin levels. Glutamate, it's involved in memory processing, learning, and it helps regulate neural connections. Acetylcholine, that's called ACH. Sorry, it's abbreviated to ACH. It's a neurotransmitter involved with muscle movement and learning. So if you have low levels of it, you might have like trouble moving your arms more. Um, and then GABA, GABA, it calms firing nerves in the nervous system, and it gives feelings of relaxation. So if you ever feel relaxed, that's why. Uh, that's all. These are my sources, and thank you for listening.